the soft glow of the theater lights, Ethan sat next to Claire, his stepmom, their shoulders almost brushing against each other. The faint aroma of buttered popcorn filled the air, blending with the sound of laughter and chatter around them. It was a typical Friday night, but tonight felt different, charged with an energy that neither of them could ignore. "Are you ready for this?" Claire asked, glancing at him with a playful smile. She wore a casual sundress that hugged her curves perfectly, making Ethan's heart race. He admired the way her hair fell over her shoulders and how her laughter lit up her face. "Definitely," he replied, trying to sound casual, though he felt a flutter in his stomach. As the film began, the two were engrossed in the story, but Ethan found it hard to concentrate. His mind kept wandering to Claire, the way she laughed at the jokes, her sparkling eyes, and the gentle way she touched his arm when she found something funny. It was all too much, and he could feel a tension building between them. The movie was a romantic comedy, filled with moments that resonated with Ethan's own feelings. He glanced at Claire during a particularly tender scene where the characters shared a soft kiss. The theater was dimly lit, and for a brief moment, Ethan saw her looking at him, her expression softening. It was as if the world around them faded, leaving just the two of them suspended in time. Without thinking, he reached out and took her hand, intertwining their fingers. Claire looked down surprised, but then she smiled, squeezing his hand gently. That simple gesture sent a jolt of electricity through him, and he could see a mixture of excitement and nervousness in her eyes. "Ethan," she whispered, leaning closer. "We shouldn't." "I know," he interrupted softly, his gaze locked onto hers. "But it feels so right." She bit her lip, and he could see the conflict in her eyes. But before she could respond, another romantic scene unfolded on the screen, and they both found themselves leaning in closer. The kiss that followed on screen was sweet and innocent, yet it sparked something primal within Ethan. He wanted to kiss Claire, needed to feel her lips against his. As if she could read his mind, Claire turned to him, her breath hitching in her throat. "Can I kiss you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes widened slightly, and for a moment, the world around them disappeared. "Yes," she breathed, leaning closer. Their lips met softly at first, a gentle exploration of emotions that had been bottled up for too long. The kiss was electric, sending waves of warmth through Ethan's body. He had dreamed of this moment, and now that it was happening, it felt surreal. As they kissed, Ethan's hand slid to the back of Claire's neck, deepening the connection. She responded eagerly, tilting her head and parting her lips slightly, inviting him in. The kiss grew more passionate, filled with unspoken desires and longing. Every brush of their lips sent shivers down his spine. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Ethan could hardly believe what had just happened. Claire's cheeks were flushed, and her eyes sparkled with excitement and something more. "Wow," she said, her voice shaky. "That was unexpected." "Yeah, but it felt amazing," he replied, his heart racing. "I've wanted to do that for so long." Claire looked away, a mixture of joy and fear in her expression. "We need to be careful, Ethan. This is complicated." "I know," he said, glancing at the screen where the film continued to play. But his mind was on her, on them. "But I don't want to stop." As the movie continued, they stole furtive glances at each other, the air between them thick with tension and possibility. Ethan's mind raced with thoughts of what could happen next. He could feel the heat radiating from Claire, and he longed to explore that heat further. The next romantic scene played out on the screen, and Ethan felt a surge of boldness. He leaned in, capturing Claire's lips once more. This kiss was more urgent, filled with pent-up emotions and desires. Claire responded with equal fervor, her hands finding their way to his hair as she pulled him closer. "Ethan," she murmured against his lips, her breath warm and inviting. "What are we doing?" I don't know, but I don't care, he replied, kissing her again, losing himself in the moment. Their kisses deepened, and Ethan could feel the world around them slipping away. The thrill of being in public, hidden in plain sight, added to the excitement. Claire's fingers trailed down his arm, sending shivers through him, igniting a fire that burned hotter with each touch. Suddenly the theater lights flickered, and a wave of reality hit them both. They pulled away, hearts racing and cheeks flushed. The film was nearing its end, and they both knew they had to compose themselves before the audience spilled into the aisles. "Let's take a breather," Claire suggested, her voice still shaky but filled with excitement. "I'll grab us some drinks." Ethan nodded, feeling a mix of anticipation and nerves. "Okay, I'll wait here." As Claire walked away, he took a moment to collect his thoughts. This was all so new and thrilling, but the reality of their situation weighed heavily on him. The connection they shared was undeniable, but the path ahead would be anything but easy. When Claire returned with 2 sodas, her smile was bright, and Ethan felt a rush of warmth at the sight of her. "Here you go," she said, handing him a cup. "Thanks," he replied, taking a sip, the cold liquid a stark contrast to the heat simmering between them. They shared a comfortable silence, their fingers brushing against each other as they leaned in close. "Do you think we should talk about what happened?" Claire asked, her eyes searching his. "Yeah," Ethan said, setting down his drink. "I think we should." Claire hesitated, her gaze drifting away. "I don't want to complicate things between us. I care about you, but—" "But?" he prompted, sensing her uncertainty. "But we're family now," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It feels wrong." "Does it?" Ethan challenged, leaning in closer. "Because it doesn't feel wrong to me. It feels right?" Claire's eyes locked onto his, and he could see the conflict raging inside her. "I've thought about this a lot, Ethan. Ever since we started getting closer, I couldn't help but wonder." "What?" he urged, his heart pounding. "Tell me." "I wondered what it would be like to kiss you," she confessed, her cheeks flushed. "But I kept pushing those thoughts away." "I didn't want to think about it either," Ethan admitted. "But I couldn't help myself. It's been building up for so long." Claire sighed, her expression softening. "Maybe we should take things slow. Figure it out together." "I can do that," he replied, a smile spreading across his face. "But I want to explore this connection we have." Claire nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I want that too, Ethan. Just, let's be careful." As they finished their drinks, the credits rolled on the screen, and the theater began to empty. They shared glances filled with promise and excitement, the weight of their newfound connection hanging in the air. Once outside, the cool night breeze wrapped around them, a stark contrast to the warmth they had shared in the theater. Claire took a deep breath, her expression thoughtful. "What do we do now?" she asked, glancing up at the stars. "Can we hang out more? Maybe go for ice cream or something?" Ethan suggested, his heart racing with hope. Claire smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her face. "I'd like that." They walked side by side, the conversation flowing easily between them. The initial tension had shifted to something more comfortable, yet the underlying current of attraction still simmered beneath the surface. When they reached the ice cream shop, they ordered their favorites, the sweet treats a delightful distraction from the intensity of their earlier moments. As they sat at a small table outside, Ethan watched Claire, mesmerized by the way her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Do you think anyone suspects anything?" Ethan asked, playfully licking his cone. "Honestly? I don't know," Claire replied, a mischievous grin on her lips. "But I hope not." "Me too," he said, leaning in closer. "I don't want to hide what we have." "Neither do I," Claire agreed, her voice softening. "But we have to be smart about it." "Agreed," he said, feeling a rush of affection for her. "I just want to be close to you, however we can." Their eyes met, and Ethan felt the air between them shift again. It was a familiar tension, the kind that promised more than just sweet treats and friendly outings. As they finished their ice cream, the playful banter continued, but the touches became more lingering, their hands brushing against each other in a way that sent shivers down his spine. Each accidental touch felt electric, igniting a fire within him that was impossible to ignore. After finishing their treats, they walked back to the car, their fingers intertwined. Ethan couldn't help but steal glances at Claire, her beauty captivating him. As they approached the vehicle, he could feel the butterflies in his stomach intensifying. "Can I kiss you again?" Ethan asked, using the softness of the night air to frame his request. He hoped for her response, both anxious and excited at the prospect. Claire looked at him, her cheeks tinged with pink. "I'd like that," she whispered, her breath catching slightly. With that simple affirmation, Ethan leaned in, closing the gap between them. Their lips met softly at first, a gentle exploration that quickly deepened into something more passionate. Ethan's heart raced as he felt her warmth against him, the kiss igniting every nerve in his body. He held her close, feeling the softness of her curves meld against him. As they pulled away, breathless and exhilarated, Ethan's mind raced with possibilities. "This feels so right," he murmured, gazing into Claire's eyes, which sparkled with a mix of mischief and affection. "It does," she agreed, her fingers still intertwined with his. "But it's also a little scary. Scary in a good way, right?" he asked, his thumb brushing against her knuckles. "Definitely," Claire replied, her smile widening. "I've never felt like this before." Ethan's heart swelled at her words. "Me neither. I can't remember the last time I felt so alive." They shared a moment of silence, simply enjoying the connection they had forged. The world around them faded into the background, leaving just the two of them suspended in a bubble of intimacy. "Maybe we should go back to the car," Claire suggested softly, glancing toward the parking lot. "It's getting late." "Yeah, let's go," Ethan replied, reluctantly releasing her hand but feeling a newfound urgency to keep their connection alive. Once inside the car, the atmosphere shifted again, the tension crackling in the small space. Ethan turned the engine over, the sound echoing in the quiet night, but his focus was entirely on Claire. Her presence was intoxicating, and he found himself stealing glances at her as they drove through the dimly lit streets. "Where to?" Claire asked, breaking the silence. "Just drive around a bit." "I want to enjoy this moment with you," Ethan replied, his heart racing at the thought of being alone with her. As they meandered through the quiet neighborhoods, Ethan couldn't help but reach for her hand again, interlacing their fingers. Claire looked at him, her eyes bright with delight, and he felt a rush of warmth flood through him. "I really enjoy spending time with you," Ethan confessed, his voice soft. "It feels special." "It is special," Claire replied, her smile lighting up the dimness of the car. "I never expected to feel this way, especially not with you." "Neither did I," he admitted, glancing at her as he navigated the streets. "But I can't help how I feel." They drove for a while longer, the conversation flowing easily between them, sharing stories and laughter that felt both new and familiar. As they approached a secluded park, Ethan's heart raced with a sudden impulse. "Let's stop here," he said, pulling into the empty parking lot beneath the trees. The moonlight filtered through the branches, casting a soft glow around them. "Okay," Claire said, intrigued. Once parked, Ethan turned to her, the weight of the moment settling between them. "Can I kiss you again?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Claire's eyes sparkled in the moonlight and she nodded, leaning in closer. Their lips met once more, and this time it felt more urgent, more desperate. Ethan's hands found their way to Claire's waist, pulling her closer, their bodies fitting together perfectly. She responded eagerly, her hands tangling in his hair as the kiss deepened. The outside world faded away, leaving only the warmth of their bodies and the electricity of their connection. "You feel amazing," Ethan murmured between kisses, feeling her heartbeat echo in the silence of the car. "Maybe we should go somewhere a little more private," Claire suggested breathlessly, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Ethan grinned, feeling bold. "There's a trail behind the park. It's secluded, no one should be around." Claire's gaze turned playful. "Lead the way." With excitement bubbling inside him, Ethan exited the car, holding the door open for Claire. Together they walked hand in hand through the park, the the moonlight illuminating their path. They ventured down the trail, the sounds of the night enveloping them, creating an intimate atmosphere. When they reached a small clearing, Ethan turned to Claire, his heart pounding in his chest. The quietness of the area felt magical, and he could sense the anticipation between them. "Wow," Claire whispered, taking in the beauty of the moonlit night. "It's perfect," Ethan agreed, stepping closer to her. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her close. Their lips met once again, and this kiss was different, filled with a hunger that had been building since their first connection. Ethan felt the heat radiating between them, and he deepened the kiss, his hands exploring the small of her back, pulling her even closer. Claire responded with a soft moan, and he felt her body arch against his. Their kisses grew more passionate, and Ethan's heart raced with excitement and desire. Every brush of their lips ignited a fire within him, a need to be closer, to feel her warmth against him. As they kissed, Ethan could feel the world outside fading away, leaving just the two of them lost in their own moment. The connection they shared felt deeper than anything he had ever experienced, and he craved every second of it. "Ethan," Claire whispered, pulling back slightly to catch her breath. "We shouldn't be doing this. It's complicated." "I know," he replied, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "But I can't help it. I want you." Claire's eyes searched his, and he could see the mix of excitement and fear. "What if someone finds out?" "Then we deal with it together," he said, confidence swelling within him. "I don't care what people think, I just want to be with you." Her expression softened, and she smiled. "You're right. I want to be with you too." With that affirmation, they fell into another kiss, the world around them fading completely. The urgency of their connection propelled them forward, and Ethan felt a wave of emotion wash over him. They were crossing boundaries, but it felt so right. As they kissed, he felt Claire's hands slide down his arms, her fingers intertwining with his as they pulled away. "Let's take this slow," she said, her voice soft yet firm. "I don't want to rush things." "Agreed," Ethan replied, his heart swelling with affection. "I want this to be special." They stood together, wrapped in each other's warmth, the moonlight casting a glow around them. Ethan knew they had entered uncharted territory, but the thrill of it only fueled his desire. "Can we just hold each other for a bit?" Claire suggested, her eyes sparkling. "Absolutely," he replied, wrapping his arms around her. They stood close, sharing quiet moments and whispers beneath the stars, the world around them fading away. As the night deepened, Ethan felt a sense of peace wash over him. He had never felt so connected to someone, and he cherished every moment spent with Claire. In that serene clearing, surrounded by the quiet of the night, they found comfort in each other's arms, holding on to the promise of what could be. The kiss they shared under the stars was just the beginning, and as they stood together, Ethan knew their journey was only starting. They would navigate the complexities of their relationship, but for now, all that mattered was the warmth of their connection and the magic of the night. In the end, it was more than just a night at the movies or a stolen kiss in the park. It was the start of a beautiful, complicated romance that would change everything for both of them.